Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Eckerman, co-founder of Eric's House and Eric's stepdad. I have the pleasure today to be speaking with Sara Combs, who is a longtime friend of Eric's House and Adam's mom. How are you today, Sara?
I'm very good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you. Can you tell us a little bit about your loss and about Adam?
Oh, I sure can. Adam is my son, and 3.5 years ago, he told me he was a drug addict, and I didn't know it at the time. So I got him into treatment right away the very next day after he told me that. And it was 30 days in a recovery center. And he got home, and the whole time I really didn't even honestly know if he was a drug addict or if he just wanted to get out of being in trouble. So he got home, and I kind of asked the recovery center what I needed to look for, because I didn't work in addiction. I am a nurse, but I didn't truly know what to be looking for an addict. They didn't give me any information, so I just kind of kept an eye on him. I didn't want to be a hovering parent the whole weekend. And then that Monday morning, 4 days later, I went to wake him up, and he was dead in my house. He had overdosed on fentanyl. So it was very shocking, and immediately I went into grief, extreme grief, like couldn't get out of bed, didn't know how to function, didn't know what I was going to do. That week, the police department set us up with a grief counselor that went on vacation the very next day after they set her up with me. So we got hooked up with Hospice of the Valley to do a grief counseling, my whole family, and it was not an appropriate fit because most of those people there had been dealing with hospice family members that were dying over a long period of time, and my son had died that week. So that was not a good grieving process for me, but of course it would be for the people that are on hospice. The very following week, one of my best friends, I was talking to her, and she said, "Oh, I just got off the phone with this wonderful person, Marianne, with Eric's House. You need to call her." So I immediately called her, and Marianne met me that very day, I think, or maybe the next day, and started my plan for how I was going to go through grief. Eric's House was pretty much in the beginnings of its operations, and it helped me tremendously. I got into grief counseling. I went to a therapist. I got into some group meetings here, and truly those first few months were the end of my life, is how it felt, and for my family. I quit my job as a nurse, took a few months off, and then when I went back to work, I thought I needed to work in recovery and detox. So since that time, that's what I've been doing. I work with the detox and recovery and the seriously mentally ill clients, because they usually are hand in hand, that diagnosis and what happens. So I'm just doing my best. Sorry.
We have so many survivors of loss to fentanyl, and it strikes me, I always observe this, it's there's a sort of an extra layer of tragedy in that, because it's there's just this element of uncertainty and risk in the fentanyl overdoses. It's like Russian roulette, and it's, for the survivors, it just seems that there's this extra layer of questioning why did it happen, and so many times it seems like it's just the worst possible set of coincidences. A kid takes the wrong pill, and if they'd have taken a different pill, there would have been no problem. Or it just, it's just tragic on so many levels. I would imagine that makes it much more difficult as a parent.
does. And truly, when he started with it, he had anxiety and some depression, and he was trying to self-treat, and he thought he was buying an Ativan is what he thought he was getting. And he said, you know, Mom, I only tried it like once or twice, and it had fentanyl in the Ativan. He goes, and then I couldn't be without it. It was an instant addiction for him. And, you know, he did have the dual diagnoses. You know, he had an addict, plus he had depression and anxiety. So it was just a downhill road. And I truly, I mean, it was a month that this went on, but leading up until that, he worked a full-time job. He was responsible. He did everything that he was supposed to do as a 26-year-old young man. So it was very shocking to me. But he did work night shift, and he would say, you know, I'd be like, why are you so tired all the time? He's like, Mom, I work nights. And so, you know, I let a lot of that go because he did work full time and he did work nights, but it was just such a shock when it happens because you're in denial. First of all, you don't want to believe that in your child. And Adam truly didn't burn any bridges. You know, he didn't rob anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. His was such a short-lived addiction that it left all of my family in total shock that this happened, because it was just this is Adam. This is our family member, and all of our family is still grieving, actually.
I didn't know Adam. I didn't know Adam, but I sort of feel like I've gotten to know him a little bit, because for those of you that have been to our Eric's House facility, you know that we have rooms that are dedicated to different individuals and by their loss survivors. And one of those is Adam's room. And if you go into Adam's room, you get right away, this guy was a musician, and, you know, he had some fairly eclectic taste, but there's something about that room that just draws me in. It's one of my favorite rooms to just sit in and talk to people.
And I hear that from a lot of the clients too, that they feel drawn into that room, that it's just such a warm feeling. And that makes me very happy, because I do have Adam's things in there. I have like one of his Cardinals journey, and I have jersey, and I have one of his guitars in there because he was a musician in a band. So it brings me great comfort to sit in there also.
Yeah, it's yeah. So, and it's really interesting to hear your personal journey. You know, so many of us find that it's not possible to continue life as it was before our loss, that there's that break point that happens, and, you know, that moment that divides our lives. And it's, you know, I think it's really wonderful that you've kind of moved into that space where you could help other people that are struggling with some of the same kinds of issues.
And, you know, that is my whole purpose. If I could just help save a few lives. Obviously, I'm not going to change the whole opiate war and everything that's happening out there. But if I can influence a few people, like I had a few clients today that said, oh yeah, I do fentanyl every day, and I'm fine. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's get you some Narcan. So I got them to our pharmacy, got them Narcan, and taught them how to use it. And I'm like, how do you feel it's safe? And they're like, oh, there's such a wide margin, I'm very safe. And I'm like, no, you're not. You know, I'm like, let's teach you how to use this Narcan. Let's get you off fentanyl altogether. But that's their illusion, that they know how much they can do. They've done this, you know, daily for months or years. I'm like, well, you're awesome that you're still here, but you might not be tomorrow. And so it's really important to me to try to educate these kids and adults, you know, it's all ages.
Well, it's wonderful work that you're doing, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know you. I guess I should mention that you've recently taken on a position as our Eric's House board secretary. So thank you very much for doing that. The work that's absolutely critical and no one really wants to do. So we're very, very appreciative of your support.
I'm very excited to be part of Eric's House. Very awesome. Thanks, to be Sarah. Here. You're welcome. Thank you, Greg.
Take care.